men, and welcome to the podcast, Messages for Men. I am certainly glad you're here. If you like this podcast, as you watch it, I hope you subscribe, like, and leave us a comment. That really helps us out on the algorithm. But today, I'm honored to have two guys about my age, Craig and Matt. Let me see, Matt's got 5 boys as we talk about fatherhood, and Craig's got 2 sons and a daughter. Both have been intimately involved in men's issues, especially with fatherlessness and fathers. I know Matt's been involved in Band of Brothers, and Craig has been involved in Peregrine Ministries, which both of those kind of focus on men's issues. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this podcast. It's great to sit down with these guys, learn a little bit more about what fathers mean in the home, and maybe some things we can do to help our boys out. Thanks again, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Well, man, I'm glad you're here because I want to spend some time talking about fathers and fatherlessness, which in our country today, we have a real problem with. Let's be honest. I mean, I feel like to some ways, it's like the 800-pound gorilla in the room that nobody wants to talk to, nobody wants to identify with, and everybody wants to ignore. But it's a significant problem in society. And I'm going to throw out some stats real quick. These stats, some of them are a little bit old, but that's okay. It does pose a trend, which I think people should listen to, because even if half these stats are spot on, we're not in a good place. So I'll start out by saying this. First of all, 1 in 4 children in the U.S. do not have a father in the home. 25%. Now, how does that compare a global level? Globally, it's 7%. China's 3%. India's 4%. We are the worst country in the world when it comes to fatherless rates. That affects, in this U.S., affects about 18 to 20 million kids. And I'm specifically and more particularly concerned about boys and how it's affecting them, since the podcast is messages from men, but it also affects girls dramatically as well. So some stats to know. 85% of the youth in prison come from fatherless homes. 20 times more likely to be incarcerated, kids who come from fatherless homes. 5 times more likely to commit all sorts of crimes. 5 times more likely to have mood disorders such as depression and anxiety. 5 times more likely to be in poverty. 71% of the dropouts, high school dropouts, come from fatherless homes. 60% of the youth today who've committed suicide come from fatherless homes. 85% of children with behavioral disorders that the school systems have to deal with come from fatherless homes. 90% of homeless, this is from the CDC, by the way, of homeless and runaway kids come from fatherless homes. 75% of adolescents in drug abuse treatment facilities come from fatherless homes, and 71% of teenage girls that are pregnant come from fatherless homes. I mean, what comes to mind in your minds as fathers? Father of 5 boys, father of 2 boys, a father of 1 boy and 2 girls. What comes to your mind when I kind of, rattle off some of these stats?
Epidemic comes to my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an epidemic of fatherlessness in our nation.
But why aren't we recognizing it? Because I said this off camera, and I'll say it now. If these stats would have been about motherlessness in the homes, Capitol Hill would have been screaming their head. Women would be screaming their heads off. We'd be throwing so much money at it, it'd be ridiculous. But since it seems like because it's men, we just don't seem to put enough emphasis or don't seem to care.
Yeah. What comes to my mind is fathers matter. As foundational as that, I don't think there's an agreed perspective in our culture. Dads really, really matter. I don't think that's acknowledged. It's ignored.
Well,
and
the
consequences
on the opposite
are
side
huge.
is mothers are exclusively what matters, and they are extremely important. There's no question.
Of course.
But what do you see? You see facilities for single mothers. What about single dads? You see all kinds of benefits. I mean, to the point of absurdity, the benefits given to the single mom. There's no benefits for the single dad. It's the emphasis, it feels like the emphasis of our culture has gone strongly towards, if you take care of the woman, everything's going to be okay. But those stats prove otherwise.
Yeah, it's not okay. We've got too many boys in particular that are really and when I said things like 25%, that's the national average, Matt. When you take a look at the black communities, for example, it's 64%, as high as 70%. Some of the Latino communities are about 42%. It gets even higher. But why is it so important in your guys' mind, since you've had boys, why is it so important we have fathers in the home?
Fathers provide a foundation, stability, and probably more important than anything else, a sense of connection, identity with their children. Fathers provide a message that you matter. Moms, absolutely. The message from moms is deeply important, but it comes from the day the child is born, and even before that. We're connected. I love you. I will give my life to you. Fathers are biologically separated and either will communicate to the child, you don't matter, abandoned, abused, absent, whatever, or you matter to me. I see you. I care for you. I care about you, and I love you. Those two messages from fathers are huge in terms of the foundation of a child's identity.
Yeah, Craig.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And we have the unique position as fathers that the young boy growing up, he knows he's to be a man someday, but if he doesn't have the model of a man in his home, he doesn't know how to do that. Yeah. And so, as you say, Craig, it's so important for us to speak. What does a man mean? What are you going to grow up to be someday? What is my belief for you to become a healthy man? And I've always resonated with that message of reinforcing in my sons that they have what it takes, whatever society is going to throw at them, which is going to be massive throughout their lives, just like we all know at the ages we are. There has to be a really deep sense in our boys that they can handle what life throws at them. And that's a tough thing to do. It has to be reinforced. It has to be lived out in the home, and it has to be spoken to and have an example of it as you are the head of the household, quote unquote. They need to be able to look at their dad and say, okay, dad made it through, and tell our own stories to our sons of our failures and our times of desperation and all the things that we as dads go to let them know, hey, but this is what I did. I turned to the Lord in this situation. I had men around me who supported me when I was in that situation. Without these men alongside of me, I would have never made it. Reinforcing that idea of you've got to grow up in a community of men. I'm important as your dad, absolutely, but you have to have that message there that you have men beside you that are going to walk life with you.
Yeah, Matt, when you say you have what it takes, it just immediately reminds me of within the last 2 weeks, I had a mother ask me, how can fathers bless their children? It just so happens that I have some opinions about that. First of all, I think there are a couple of messages that dads can give a son or a daughter. One of them is, I see you. I see who you are. I see how you've been designed and created. I see it. Second message is, I believe in you. You've got what it takes. I believe in you probably more than you believe in yourself. I believe in you. Yeah. And the third message is, I'm not leaving you.
Amen.
I'm here for the journey. As long as you're around and I'm around, I'm here for you. Gosh, Brad, the stats that you read, if those boys had had a dad who said those three things, would it have made a difference?
Yeah,
enormous.
Absolutely. That's that vacuum.
Yeah.
So I probably would have very similar, but I come to believe there's three things that every father needs to tell their son. One is, I love you. One is, I'm proud of you. I never heard.
Yeah, I can tell.
But I know, Brad, you have done that for Dylan. I know you have.
Is that it? Was there
No,
another?
and the third one is
I love you. I'm proud of you.
I love you. I'm proud of you. And the third would be I'll be there for you.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
I think it's important that I kind of explain why, maybe. You know, many young men out there will say, my father never said he loved me, and I knew he did. My father never said he was proud of me, and I knew he was. And I would say to those young men, you're very fortunate, and congratulations. But there's millions of young men out there who never hear that. By saying to your son, I love you, you're expressing emotion and saying to a young man, it's okay to have emotions.
Yeah.
And you're expressing how you feel about that young man. Secondly, when you say, I'm proud of you, that's important because as a young man growing up, he needs to have something he can lean into and onto. As life kicks him in the balls, which life will,
Yep.
he can always say, you know what, my dad's still proud of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And lastly, I think we need to make sure we tell our boys we're there for them, not to do for them necessarily. What I mean by that is that my son knew that I'd always be there for him. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do the job for him. It doesn't mean I'm going to make the phone calls. It doesn't mean I'm going to do the work. It doesn't mean I'm going to do that. But he and I will always have an honest conversation about whatever's going on in his life. I'll be glad to make recommendations and steer him in leadership and mentorship and how I can. But sons have got to be able to take, the bull by the horns and lead their own path in their own lives. But I see so many young men today that are growing up insecure in relationships because they're chasing what their father never gave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many young men do you know that said that are like, if only I knew my father was proud of them. So what they do in life is they chase what they think their father might want.
They
what
try to get the voice of the father.
If only I made this much money. If only I bought that house.
Right.
If only I had that job. If only I scored 20 points.
Right.
My dad would be proud of me. If a father can say, son, I'm proud of you, I think what it does, it establishes, like I said, security in the young man when he develops later in life relationships with other men, and especially women. He turns into a guy that's not necessarily, we talked about this, Craig, a nice guy, but a good man.
Yes.
Where he's constantly trying to please and saying, please see me. I need to be validated. I need to be heard. I need somebody to tell me I'm okay because my father never did.
Yeah. Gosh, you're reminding me, Brad, of honestly, so many things, but one of them being an author and therapist, nationally known, guy named Larry Crabb, spoke here in the Springs at Glen Erie. And I heard him, it had to be in the early 90s because I didn't live here at that point yet. But one of the things that he mentioned was that the voice of the father is so important and the example of the father. He gave an analogy of what a good father looks like. And he said, he's a man who's 30, 35, maybe 40 years older than you, walking down a path of life. And you're watching him, and you want to follow. There's something about the way that he's walking that you want to follow. And this is a good father I'm talking about. You can see he's got some scars, some scuffs on the shoes, on the jeans, whatever, but you want to follow. And as you follow him, you stumble over a pothole on the path and fall to the ground. The father turns around and notices. What he doesn't do is come back and pick you up. He stands there and waits. And then you get up on your feet and start walking again, and he smiles, nods, turns around and keeps on going. When I heard him say that, I cried. I had a great dad. But it spoke to me that one of the things a dad does is, in addition to loving and being present, he believes you got what it takes. Exactly. And watches it come to the surface. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. I think, as fathers, I think we help establish, I'll use the word masculinity. I think our sons learn masculinity from us because you got to remember our boys, I don't care how old they are, they're constantly watching. They're watching how we treat their mom.
Yeah.
How we treat other friends, how we treat the job, how we treat work, our work ethic, and kind of how we treat life.
Yeah.
And this is some of the major problems I see in society today is we've got fatherhood being filled in a vacuum, by the drug lord down the street or, whomever it is that teaching these boys this is what masculinity looks like because there's not a father to treat that. Now, I'm in no way shaming single mothers. Some of them have done a tremendous job and created wonderful.
They're heroic.
Yeah, heroic jobs. But I am saying, by and large, when young men have to seek outside their father, many of these young men they don't seek pastors and mentors and coaches necessarily a lot of times. Sometimes they will move in the wrong direction, seeking the wrong thing.
They're the guy who's successful in the world's terms. Power, possession, money, whatever it is. That's the guy.
There have been times when I've had to have conversations with Dylan just about what it means to be a man, about strength, resistance, perseverance. The Finnish people have a term, it's called shishu, S-I-S-U.
That's that movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the Northerners, it's interesting, and that really means grit, perseverance, resiliency. And these are some of the happiest people in the world.
Yeah.
So there's something to said for people who still, can have resiliency in the face of whatever obstacles they have to overcome. So Dylan and I have had conversations just about what it means to be a man and the strength it takes. And sometimes the sacrifice it takes. Because if you're going to provide for your family, you're going to sacrifice. Somebody else has got to come first. And not always, but, masculinity means sacrifice, duty, loyalty, honor, and what you can do for your family and your children to make sure that they live a productive life and become productive citizens, members of society. And, in terms of young men and our boys, what's some things that you think that you've done that made a difference in their lives as a father?
I'll just jump in without having thought it through real deeply. We already know presence, be present, stick around, engage with what they care about. So for my sons, soccer, they want to play soccer. I coached them in soccer. Music, they were all born early 80s. As the grunge whole thing happened coming out of Seattle, I paid attention and decided, okay, I'm going to listen to this music with these guys. Whatever it is in their world that matters to them. I, of course, was not the expert, but I tried to be present in their world, not just my world, and force them to come into my world. Try to engage in their world, the things that they care about, that they believe in and they enjoy. Presence.
That was the one word that one of my sons answered when I said, what comes to mind with fatherhood? The term was presence.
Is that right?
And I agree. I mean,
wow.
With 5 sons, it was overwhelming at some times to be present, but I did my very best to be at sporting events, to be involved in their world from little boys all the way forward, play ping pong with them, play games together, go on hikes together, encourage them in the things that they found to love and to enjoy. And it never stops. It's still a part of our world.
And it still is, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Being present to the things that are important to them as grandkids start being born. And I have to admit, I really loved watching all my boys in sports. That was a passion and a wonderful time to, be there cheering them on and give them a hug afterwards, whether they won or lost and all those things. But
it's kind of like, if it matters to you, it matters to me.
Yeah.
Both my boys liked sports. They both liked music, but one in particular really pursued music. If you like music, man, it matters to me too.
Yep.
Well, I think I heard this once. You don't have to be perfect. Just show up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be perfect.
No.
Might as well accept that.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Right.
What a difference. How did raising boys, how is it different, let's say in terms of discipline or however, versus Beryl or versus, Kim? and how they dealt with your boys, and how you did.
Well, I think honestly, Kim was a little more understanding in the rough patches that every boy is going to run into. She was a little bit more of a rebel herself growing up, so she could identify some. But we decided, however we decided, that I was going to be the primary disciplinarian. So I handled the real rough spots,
Which I think is good.
Yeah. And we, of course, had them. I mean, we had a pack of boys, and sometimes they got in trouble as a pack. Yeah. And so, yeah, we certainly shared responsibility in that. But one thing that was a big, come down hard on was if they ever disrespected Kim in any way.
Yeah.
And I have some funny stories and some hard stories of when that happened. That was the big one.
Yeah, I'm thinking through for Burl and me. I'm grateful to be able to say Burl was very engaged with the boys as well as our daughter, and had a great relationship with them. And I think she would not hesitate to make it clear within the household. Here's how you operate. Here's how you put the dishes into the dishwasher when you're done, or whatever it is. Burl wasn't hesitant to make sure it was clear how we live as a family, and everybody contributes, that kind of thing. Me too. But where I got engaged, it was real clear that this is not Burl's conversation, were things along the lines of, I'll give you one example. One of our sons at a certain point, I don't know how old he was. Let's say he was 12 years old, something like that, maybe 11. A few things were going on for him. One was his grades were suddenly dropping. A second was that felt like he was being abandoned by friends. A third was that we got a phone bill that had a bunch of 900 sex calls on it. Yeah. I mean, this is Stone Age as we talk about today, but 900 call meant you're dialing into something. And, one or two other things like that. Burl and I talk about it, and we came to the unanimous opinion, I need to talk to him about this. That's something I need to talk about. This is not how you act within the family situation. This is really, honestly, we're talking about manliness.
Yeah.
You show up. You do the best that you can. You don't start pursuing sexual stuff online, so to speak. And so I grabbed him and I said, hey, how about if we go to 31 Flavors and get some ice cream? And I just went through that doorway, go through the ice cream doorway. And we had one of the best conversations of my life. And, just fumbled around for a little while and then essentially said, hey, we're noticing your grades are dropping, or we're noticing you're pulling back from friends, or hey, by the way, we got this phone bill. And it was as natural and comfortable as those tough topics could have been. And it turns out he had a buddy over at our house who dialed into the 900 numbers. Thank goodness. Burl was wondering if it's me. No, it's not me. Shoot, that means it's one of the boys. We wrapped up the conversation. This is the answer to your question. There are some topics the guy gets involved. The dad shows up. It's not the mom talking about the son about some sexual stuff you're pursuing, for goodness sake. And we wrapped up the conversation, which went remarkably better than I thought it might. And as we're getting in the car afterward, he said, hey, Dad, it's good for us to have this open talk with each other. Like we're two older guys palling around with each other. I mean, it was the Lord blessed it, honestly. It was better than I could have expected.
Well, I think, and looking back with my son, I think more the difficult conversations surrounding sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever, I was more actively involved in that.
Sure.
And the same here.
Yeah.
From a father's perspective. And I think that's our role as fathers, is step in and say, this is not really going to fly, Dylan. I understand that it's out there. I understand you're curious, but this is a path of destruction you don't want to go down.
There are consequences to this.
I also wanted to share with you, since you guys don't have girls, I also wanted to share with you.
I do have a girl.
Oh, that's right. You've got one girl. That Matt might be interested in this. There is a difference, even for those social scientists who think otherwise. There is a difference between boys and girls and how they're growing up and how they behave.
Mm-hmm.
I know with Dylan versus his two girls, he just approached everything so differently. He approached the world in such a more physical component of the world. Yeah. It was about building, tearing down, building again, wrestling, grappling, figuring out the world. And I'll tell you a quick story. I'll never forget when Dylan was probably 5 or 6, he got a hold of his sister's Barbie dolls. And this is how a young boy, for example, and I didn't teach him this. This comes back to nature versus nurture. Is that he would take the Barbie dolls and he'd get to the top of the stairs and twist them around and around and around and throw them and see how many times they could bounce down the stairs. And the girls would be mortified by that. Yeah. Right. But I want to just express that when we look at boys, they engage the world differently than girls do.
Oh, yeah.
And how we need to engage with them, is differently. Another thing, for example, in terms of physicality of stuff, my son knew you were never allowed to hit your sisters. I don't care how mad you got. You were never allowed to hit your sisters. There was a lot of teasing, a lot of ribbing, and he had to go through a whole lot. And I can tell you right now, I could see in his eyes, he wanted nothing more than to hit those girls. But I think, once again, we model and we teach that you do not hit girls. It's just not acceptable in society. Men don't do that. And he knew that growing up. Men do not hit women. But once again, where do you get that modeled? He got it from their dad. Where do you hear the message? He got it from their dad. He had to live it, with his sisters. So I think, we men do play a significant role.
That could be a message Dylan heard from Leah. And probably was. It's very different if he's hearing it from dad.
Oh, no, I'm telling you right now, if Dylan would have hit his sisters and only his mom was there to deal with that, it wouldn't have been the same repercussions.
Yeah.
Not because I would have hit Dylan. I'm not going to do that. But he didn't want to disappoint me. In the same way that, it's like, oh crap, dad's going to be really pissed. Mm-hmm. It's just different than it is with mom.
It is. It's different.
So with my sons, I purposed, and this is just an example of dealing with things like, what is it to be a man? Where does pornography come into life and the toxicness of that, and lots of different issues. I took my sons when they hit kindergarten on a father-son camping trip, each one of them. And then when they hit 13, I took them away and we did something like, Raising a Modern Day Knight, or, Entering Adolescence by some other program, and where all these different topics were brought up: pornography, work life, what does it mean to grow up and be a man, and all these, adolescent topics that start racing around in a young boy's mind and heart. And we'd have a whole weekend to listen and engage and talk about. And but that, of course, pornography could be a huge topic that we talk about. Certainly with my boys, it was something that I was the one that was given the job of, taking the boy aside and explaining the toxicity, explaining
the temptation,
the desire,
why it pulls,
but also explaining the goodness of God in both female and male perspectives and sexuality, that it's all good, and Satan's the one that's trying to destroy it. And certainly through pornography, he's doing a hell of a job when it comes to our society today. But yeah, I and every one of my boys, they'd be on a bus and someone would be sharing pictures, and they'd go to a friend's house and they'd be alone and, on the computer. So I had to sit with all of them at certain times and just talk through that, tell them how much I loved them, how much I understood, but that this they had to really strongly address this and kick that out of their lives.
It's likely going to be an issue for the rest of their lives. It doesn't go away. Once you get married, for example. No, it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
The pull.
Yeah, I used to have conversations with Dylan that I reminded him that being a man is difficult.
Yeah.
And the difficulty of manhood is something that we should not shy away from. It's what really does strengthen us as men. When I would tell him that, when you constantly seek pleasure and comfort is when you find yourself seeking pornography that you spoke of, is when you find yourself seeking games and video games and doom scrolling. It's the thing that brings us instant gratification. But I remind Dylan, real men, they're not entwined in that. They're entwined in what is life about for you? What is your passion? What is your vision? What do you want to do? And one thing I was proud of with my son is that he was very scholastically minded, wanted to do well in school and wanted to get a good job and that, which, I'm extremely proud of him for that. And your boys too, Matt.
Oh yeah.
But
it would also, and you mentioned this in a way, it's that drilling home the concept of delayed gratification, how
I was thinking the same thing.
vitally important that is
Yeah.
in our lives.
yeah,
Right.
Those of us sitting right here, but even more so, it seems, in the young boys coming up in this culture. I didn't face the same pressures that my boys face.
No.
And
Or the accessibility to virtually anything at
gosh,
your fingertips.
absolutely.
Right.
click of a button.
Yeah.
To be able to say, no, I know there's something better if I wait for it. And to say, this is wrong and I'm not going to be
That
involved.
is so hard. I get with the algorithms and how they're
It is.
written.
It's insanely hard.
It's but once I would tell Dylan, it's not that I don't want you to have comfort and pleasure at times in your life.
Sure,
you
of
should
course.
have.
Yeah.
But it's the difficult times that you've got to lean into, and that's really where the strength of masculinity is built, is in difficult times. And don't shy away from that. Don't run from that. Don't seek pleasure and comfort every time something becomes difficult for you in life.
But also, what I've tried to reinforce in my sons, because of my experience with Band of Brothers, is how important it is to have friends that you can be completely honest with.
Yeah.
Because, as we used to always start our retreats, you're not alone. You think you're alone in what you're experiencing. You think that if anyone knew what you were doing, they wouldn't like you, they wouldn't be your friend, they'd kick you out of the organization, whatever it is. But understanding that probably the friend group that you're running in, they're all dealing with the same thing. And if you can talk about it, both as a dad to a son, but also to encourage them to be in, even in their young ages, to be in a community where they've chosen good friends who can be with them through the hard times. I mean, that's what we need as adult men.
Yep. Still today.
So that we can face the temptations that we have at this age. And but I think I would believe it's even harder for our sons.
The place I had to come to, Craig, which was in the fairly recently, I'd say in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's when my father passed away, I finally had to realize and look back at his life and what his father relationship was like. And my dad did better than his dad.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And number one. And number two, I think my dad did the best he could.
Yep. Right.
But what he understood and the tools he had.
I think that's important.
And it took me a long time to accept that.
Right.
But I think we all have to understand, in many cases, they grew up in a different generation, a different time. And, sometimes fathers give what they can and they don't know how to give other.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And I agree with that. So many times a dad, it's important for guys our age or guys our sons' ages to come to a point of saying, my dad did the best that he could.
Right.
Given the cards he was dealt, holy cow, the older I get, now I know what he was dealt. Given those cards, he did the best that he could. To come to a point of not blind acceptance, but understanding and forgiveness, wow, is that healing?
Yeah, I mean the pain's still there, but it's further recognize kind of where he was coming from.
Yeah.
In your words, the hand he was dealt.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about? What do you want for your sons right now? As fathers.
Well, since each one of our boys was very young, babies, we've prayed for their future spouses, longing for them to be in a marriage that was healthy, supportive, well suited for each other, deep friends. For Kim and I, we were friends for 10 years before we decided to get married.
Wow. Huh.
And it's significant to this day, having that kind of friendship, because, you're not going to wake up in love with your spouse every day. And, you go through lots of cycles of hardships of life and finding new directions to go. And friendship, I believe, as a basis for getting married was what has really made life so much easier for Kim and I, because we've hit some significant rough spots, just like everyone does.
Did you talk about, like, for example, with your sons? Did you talk about, let's say, red flags?
Oh yeah.
What you saw as red flags in a woman that you said you're going to have to think twice?
Maybe not that direct, but absolutely, trying to reinforce with them. An illustration I used was, a woman is looking for a man who she can put her, attach her wagon to the man because she believes in where he's going. I think it's extremely important for a man to have his identity set and moving forward. And Larry Crabb is the one who said, hey, in so many allegorical ways of life, men are designed to pursue and to move into.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And women are designed to receive and nurture.
You got it.
And, probably in this society, people would go crazy over that and say, oh, no. Yeah. But I believe it 100%. I've seen it. Yeah. I've experienced it. Yeah. And so trying to help my sons understand, give the woman that you are, starting to date, starting to fall in love with, give her a good example of what she's going to attach her wagon to in the future. That you're not revolving around her, but she is identifying, oh, this is the man I want to journey my life with because he's on a good journey. But that's tough. That's tough to find the journey that you're on. And certainly we've been praying for that for all our boys, that they find direction in their life. They find purpose in their life. They find love in their life. And, and that another one that we have prayed for a lot for, continuously, is that they would find good friends who know the Lord and can encourage our boys in their own journey, so that they would be identified into a community that was encouragement, certainly commonality, but I've mentioned several times already in this talk about the importance of community and being in a healthy community with other men. Vital. We've prayed for good mentors for our boys. We've prayed for, one good friend who would be an encouragement to them in their walk with the Lord, and they could encourage the friend, and it would be common goal of spiritual growth, and maturing as men, and really being on a journey of masculinity that is healthy and good.
I probably took a little different approach at times with my son. And for example, I would say things to him like, you're going to have to step back and assess how she makes you feel.
Yeah.
Does she create chaos and havoc within your nervous system? These are signs that this probably is not going to go well for you. Also, are you getting inclinations where, you may say something, she rolls her eyes or says something disrespectful? My point to Dylan was always, unless there's some significant work done, leopards don't necessarily change their spots. And if this bothers you now, it will probably bother you in 10 years. Mm-hmm. So, I would tell him choosing the right spouse is probably one of the most significant decisions you'll ever make in your life. And think about it, young people are making it at a pretty young age, especially our age. But it can be difficult to navigate that. And I think sometimes fathers can step in and help their son say, have you thought about this? And what about that? Because, once your son makes a mistake and you watch the entire divorce process unfold before your eyes, it's a grieving, painful process for you as well.
Absolutely.
I love that question, Brad. I'd like to speak into it a little bit so my sons are both married now, and I've got a son-in-law who married my daughter. She was the oldest of our kids. All of them Christ followers, all of them present in the family, all of them providers. But my older son, Alec, didn't get married until he was 42, a couple of years ago. And for a number of years, he was dating great women, and he happened to live at one point in Seattle, another point in Minneapolis, and we met these women, and he'd bring them to us in Colorado to get to know them a little bit, and then eventually became apparent she's not the one he's going to marry. And so we longed for him to be a husband because he'd be a great one. We'd long for him to be a father because he'd be a great one, but we also had to accept the fact he may not be either one of those things. He may not be a husband or a father, and I'm thinking of the guys watching this and listening to it right now who aren't. Mm-hmm. You're not defined solely by that, that's for sure.
Right.
You are having the capacity to pass on blessing to other people, even beyond the welcome boundaries of marriage and family. And the good news in my son Alex's case is I was sharing this with Matt this morning. As a matter of fact, he let a few girls go because he just realized I'm not in love with her, and at a certain point asked me, "Dad, do you think my standards are too high?" And I said, "You got very high standards. They're not too high because of the mom you had. You're looking for someone who's like her. Not same personality, but you got some standards. Don't drop them.
Yeah,
you'll find her." And he did.
Good.
Yeah. So what I long for my sons is if the Lord allows the opportunity for them to be a husband, well, be a good one. If you're a dad, be a life-giving father. If you're a provider, your job, your work, your athleticism, whatever it is, whatever you are, do it with all of your heart. But in particular, I would say it's important for all of us guys to be who we are with everything we've got for the benefit of others. You've said it before. You've both said it in the course of this conversation. Bottom line, it's not all about us. That's a shallow man who thinks it's all about me. No, it's not. You are here to bring it to others.
I probably have a little bit more of a shallow approach to when I think about my son. There's really two things. There's a short-term and a long-term wish that I have for him. The first one, short-term, is I wish in the very near future he'd hear the patter of little feet running to the door.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
I understand.
When dad's had a hard day and when they jump in your arms and they don't care whether whether you did phenomenal things that day or it didn't go well for you. They don't care about they just care that you're dad. And I think at that moment for me, it made me realize that father's a privilege. It's not an obligation, and it really is an honor to be a father and to have sets of little eyes that look into you and say that you are all that. You are my dad. And I think in the long term, what I'd hope for my son is that I just hope that he finds and continues to find his purpose.
Yeah.
He finds meaning in his life. We talk about happiness a lot, fellas. I'm not really big on happiness because happiness is an emotion the same as sadness is. I hope my son has happy moments in his life. Absolutely. Yeah. But more so, I hope that he finds meaning and passion in what he's doing. And it's for him, it's striving to be better than he currently is.
Yeah. Yeah. I often said happiness, like you said, it's an emotion. It's circumstantial.
Yeah.
To the environment. Good things happen. The Broncos win the Super Bowl, which they didn't. You're happy.
Right.
The quarterback breaks his ankle. You're sad. There's stuff that's deeper than that. Real meaning and joy in deeper stuff that's not circumstantial.
I want to read something to you guys, and I thought it was pretty phenomenal, and it's kind of but this kind of sums it up. It's called To My Little Boy. To my little boy, you might not be so little anymore, but in my eyes, you'll always be my little boy. I'll never forget the day you arrived. I'll never forget the first time I held you close and how that effect had on me and how it changed my world forever. I've seen you grow from the tiny footsteps chasing big adventures. From reaching from my hand to running ahead fearlessly, full of excitement. And even the years move forward, and you stand taller each day. My love for you never changes. It remains constant, boundless, and unshakable. One day, you go off chasing your own dreams. But always remember this, you'll always have a place to return to, a home in my heart.
Man. So, Brad, what's coming to my mind is the emotion and the depth that grips you when you read those words about Dylan, your little boy. That comes out of your story with your dad and his dad. It's not just ravages and scars and pain, but over time, it gets healed and it results in passion. It can result in passion. It can result in just staying pissed off the rest of your life. Right. You've decided not to do that. I'm going to invest this with deep emotion and passion into my son. That's unmissable to me.
Well, I think what it's done for me, it's been at times a blessing in disguise, Craig. Why? Because it kind of reinforced in me of what I wanted, what I may not have gotten, and how I can break the cycle.
Yes,
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we should all, as men and dads, be cycle breakers. I mean, I had a wonderful dad, but there are certain aspects of his life that I want to be better than he was. He had a horrible dad, a very bitter dad that, was roughshod by his dad. So, I mean, and I look at my dad and I say, gosh, he was so much better than his dad. And I love my dad deeply, but he was, to a certain extent, a closed off dad. My dad, the first time I ever remember my dad giving me a hug and saying that he loved me, I was in 7th grade.
Wow.
That just wasn't what he got. So
Right.
I believe he didn't know how to give it to me.
Same with my dad. You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. I think they're about the same age. You're right, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my dad loved the Lord. I knew that. And he loved my mom, and he loved his children, and he loved me. I had the opportunity to do more with my dad than my older siblings. I'm, the youngest. So I got that more opportunity to be with him and enjoy him later in life. But, I very much purposed to be physically loving to my sons from day one. To hug them, to tell them that I love them.
Give them a kiss.
Give them a kiss. And of course, Kim was a wonderful example to me and really helped me grow in that as well. But I think we all have cycles that we need to break, chains that we need to break from the father wound, whether it's a deep one or a shallow one or whatever. we want to be better. And that is one of our challenges as men. And, then I hope my boys do even better in their life. I used to tell my boys, Mom and I, we've been a springboard for you to go even farther in your maturity, in your life, in your spirituality, in understanding of how to be a healthy man. Do it better than I did.
Yeah,
because I did it better than my dad.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah, I love that, Matt. Be a cycle breaker, and you are. So is your dad, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know that story, but your dad was very different from his dad.
Yep.
How did that happen? Was that on purpose, do you think?
I think he took his walk with Jesus more deeply, and perhaps, how does that work for us? I think he got educated in ways that his father never was. Purpose to have relationships in his life. Purpose to get counseling. He purposed to, probably he wouldn't use that same terminology, but I know he purposed to break out of the mold that he saw his dad in.
Yeah. So a little while ago, you said the word, I said presence. You said that was in your mind. That's the word that's been in my mind.
Yeah.
Purpose. Be purposeful.
Right.
Live your life on purpose. Decide the guy you're going to be, the husband you're going to be, and the dad you're going to be, the grandfather you're going to be. Don't just let it shift into, it's coincidental and it'll be whatever it is. Be purposeful.
What do you think, guys, if you were to give a young father or even young men today, what suggestion do you think we could give to kind of turn around some of the numbers that I quoted?
I've said it with men for probably 30 years, if not more. You matter. You have no idea how much you matter. The voice and the presence and the safe touch of a male, it brings something. I didn't invent it, that's for sure. I honestly believe the Creator decided there's going to be something about the safe presence and voice and touch of a male that will bring blessing.
I agree with that.
I would say that.
Yeah, with my two sons that have a child, reinforcing in them how important they are to that child.
God.
To our grandchildren. Yeah. We're important as grandparents, certainly, but they have a vital role of loving their child and presence and purpose. Those are both great words.
And resist, stand against, speak against the voices of the culture that say, the more masculine you are, the more toxic it is for the rest of us. That's just a lie. That's just a lie.
Yep.
There's woundedness and brokenness. There are toxic men who make awful choices, but masculinity itself, just like femininity, is a gift.
Yeah, Craig, when you tell young men and boys that they're toxic, what you're basically saying, there's something defective within them.
You got it.
And that needs to be exorcised out of them.
Absolutely.
Yep. And what needs to be implanted with them is more femininity.
Yes.
And so we've got to get away from this toxic masculinity message.
We do.
Because many young men will believe I am defective as I am because I am a man.
Yes. I would go so far as to say we need to get away from that message, not just for the boys, but for the girls in our lives, in the world.
Yep.
The girls need to know masculinity is not, there are awful men. There are some bad women too. But masculinity, boy, pursue the gift and the blessing that is. Yep. Yes, boys, that needs to be spoken against.
Well, this is why I don't know that society today deals with it well. An example: Dylan got into a playground scuffle in the 5th grade. All right, and just because of the way we are in society today, the principal's involved. Now the parents are involved. Now school counselors involved. I think it was in the New York Times. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
How we manage sometimes boys and sometimes the scuffles they have. I remember sitting there thinking, these are boys.
They're going to fight. Sure.
They're gonna, but we shamed them, ridiculed them, told them there's no such thing as, there's no reason ever to have physical altercations. There's no room for violence in any cause, any way, any shape, any form. And I personally think, and when Dylan got in this scuffle, I think my response to him is, tell me how this could have come out differently. But I think we shame boys in the sense that we tell them that you should never, ever use your masculinity or even your strength for any way, shape, or form. I don't agree with that. And for example, I've always taught Dylan that if you see a man hit a woman, all gloves are off. No, it's all gloves are off. You do whatever you got.
Get in the way.
You get whatever you got to do. And my point with young men is that we've got to be able to teach them when and where. When and where to unsheath the sword. When and where aggression is appropriate, because they are more aggressive.
Oh, sure.
It's unfair, for example, to tell a young man, well, you should never use physical force under any circumstances. And then when he's 18 to 20 years old, have him parachute behind lines, fighting a different contingency, and say, oh, don't ever use physical force, where if he doesn't, he could lose his life.
Right.
I mean, I think it's more important in society today that men be dangerous when they need to be dangerous. But we've got to teach the difference in men and boys when it's appropriate and when it's not. I mean, there's a lot of times when it's not appropriate to do the things that men do. It's not appropriate to hit women. It's not appropriate to beat the crap out of your wife or girlfriend. It's not appropriate to get mad and get raged in traffic and do something crazy. But we still need to teach boys when you can be and should be, I think, appropriate to protect and defend those that cannot.
I'd like to take one jump off of that springboard. Yeah. What I tell boys and I tell men, get in the way on behalf of values and principles you believe in and people you love.
Excellent.
Get in the way on behalf of those two things. Stuff you believe in, speak up, take action. People you care about and who are counting on you, show up, man. Step up.
Yeah, that is
Say
really
something,
good.
do something.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you swing a fist, but you get in the way.
Yeah.
I just see in society today how we push all this, you don't be aggressive, don't hit, don't shove, don't push, don't. And I don't know that we're really doing boys a service and young men a service. Instead, we should be teaching that's not the appropriate place or time to do that. Here's a better example would be. I had to, speaking of that, man, I had a young man when I coached the C team in lacrosse.
Yeah.
You may remember who it was. I'm not going to say his name out loud. But I had one young man who he was just a violent kid. He just wanted to beat the shit out of everybody with his stick, all the other opponents. And it seemed like every game.
Which is against the rules, I think, right?
It is. Every game he got thrown out of. And what I tried to teach the young man, he'd come over and, stand next to me, tell me and explain to me what that accomplished. I mean, the team is now down a man, right, and they're going to possibly score on us, and you caused that. Yeah. You're sitting next to me, you're not playing. So how did your behavior, what did it accomplish?
Good question. That's great.
Was that good? Was that good for you?
Yeah.
And over time, he got better and better about it because he understood the consequences of what's happening. At the same time, I saw Dylan, for example, when one of the opposing team took a cheap shot.
Yeah.
And so Dylan shoved him. Well, I was like,
yeah, that's my boy.
Good for you, son. But you know what I mean?
Right.
It's about teaching our boys and sons when it's appropriate to use physical force if necessary and when it's not. Because I don't think if you don't have that ability, I mean, society can look at you as a weak man. If you're not doing what you talked about, Craig, and stand in the gap, society can view you as a weak man. And I think men still must have the ability to step in when necessary.
You got it, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, and lacrosse is such a great sport for boys. I mean, give them sticks and helmets, and they can go out there and just beat the crap out of each other. That's an awesome thing.
And they do.
Yes, and they do.
They get out a lot of aggression. I have probably, because I've really thought a lot about this. And I love what you guys have to say, but I'm going to go back and take a look. Where does it all start? How do you build good men? You have to build good boys.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to go back and look at how we teach young boys. The school systems are failing young boys miserably.
Badly.
You would expect a little boy to sit around a group and be
Fidgeting
taught
around
like a girl.
Yeah.
And by the way, about 70% of elementary school teachers are women.
Yeah.
That's just not how little. And then we label them. What? They're ADD.
Right.
I just don't. Right. So I think, first of all, what I think would help is if we had more charter type schools that are just for boys. And a mandatory 50% of teachers in that school had to be a male.
Wow.
I think, I'm sorry, but I just think
that would be something else.
Yeah. Well, I think boys learn differently. They venture throughout the world in a more physical way than girls do.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think boys need to have the opportunity to do that without harm being done to them because they don't learn like girls. Secondly, and this is kind of radical, Richard Reeves from his book talked about it too, and I think I agree with this. Maybe we should start boys a year later in school. Because some of it has to do with, maturity and development.
Yep.
And just understanding that boys, for example, their prefrontal cortex doesn't, which is more the executive power of the brain, doesn't form until probably the age 25. And girls, it's about a year or two before that.
Oh, yeah.
So in terms of maturity level, we just don't have the same. And I would also say that I would love to see boys being exposed to, not only, wish they could get fathers in the home, but I'm not really sure how to do that, but at least get exposed to more mentors, more coaches, more counselors, more men in their lives that can speak in their lives and that can help them discern and understand, even though my dad's not here, that doesn't make me a bad boy, but I can still understand what masculinity looks like through the eyes of other men. And I think we need to dedicate, as a society, more resources, more education, more everything to helping young boys. It's not to say that girls aren't important, but it's not a zero-sum game, which means we can't help girls along the way and help boys. Because what's happening now, fellas, is as we see girls improving, the college rate is probably by 2030, we'll have twice as many girls graduating from college as boys.
Yep. Yeah.
You'll have more female lawyers, more doctors, and I'm not saying anything wrong with that. But what I'm saying is we're doing that at the expense of watching boys fall further and further and further.
Yeah, I'd like to say, emphasize that point, Brad. You're not saying there's anything wrong with women becoming effective and
not
gifted.
at all.
No,
I mean,
but there's
Title IX
something missing in this picture.
Title IX was probably
the guys
very
are falling
absolutely.
behind.
Yeah,
right.
That's
and I
pretty
think,
evident.
Unless we as a society say, we see you, we recognize that young boys are falling behind, and we need to incorporate structural changes within our society to help boys along the way. We cannot see the statistics that I quoted to you continue to get worse. We cannot see where the average family household has, let's say, 50% fatherless homes. I mean, we have to understand as a society, families are built on the backs of good men, I believe. Societies are built on the backs of good women. This is not to diminish the role of women. I'm saying if we don't have good men, the fabric of our society may unravel and fray, and we may never be what we want it to be. And we've got to dedicate more energy and effort as men our ages, all ages, to helping boys understand what it means to be masculine and what it means to be a good husband, a good father, and a good steward and a good citizen.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if the father's not engaged, there are other men who can be.
Right.
How important it is that for young boys that there might be some other guy, his dad's age, who pays attention. This happened for me. My dad was paying attention, but when I was in high school, I was on the swim team, raced every weekend, for 4 years. And of course, my dad was paying attention. He'd show up to the meet, so would my mom. That's fine. But Mr. Schultz, the dad of one of my best buddies, didn't go to the same high school. He's got no reason to be interested in how I'm doing in my high school swimming race. Almost every Sunday morning, he'd find me at church. Craig, how'd you do? How was your race Friday night? How was your race Saturday? It spoke to me. It was some message that said, you matter. You've got what it takes. You don't just have to be my flesh and blood. You're in the group. You're in the man group. I want to know how life is for you.
Yeah.
Well, it spoke a lot.
And I also, Craig, I think we need to do a better job within churches, religious organizations, synagogues, temples.
Absolutely.
Of really discussing father issues we have in our society, and also figure out ways that we can help young men in all facets of society right now.
I agree.
I really do want to take this time to thank Craig and Matt for showing up and talking about fatherlessness in the home, what it means to be a father, what's meant to be a father to them, maybe some things that we can do to help boys out, to help young fathers out. And we kind of went over the statistics in terms of challenges that fathers have today. And there's just way too many kids growing up without a father's presence in the home. But once again, I hope you like, subscribe, and make a comment. It means a lot to us. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'd like to hear from you. Thank you very much. Have a great day.